Hello, gamers. Aaron Shack here, and we are here for the Shackcast episode number 26, and we are celebrating a milestone here on the YouTube channel. I've recently surpassed 1,000 subscribers, have well over 4,000 watch hours. I believe it's somewhere around like 9K at the moment, for this year anyway. Um, and we have reached YouTube partner. So I'm now a YouTube partner. We're getting things set up on the channel in terms of like monetization and memberships and emotes and all sorts of cool stuff that comes with that. But I just want to thank everyone for their continued support of both the Shackcast and the YouTube channel. And I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, all these various social media outlets. So definitely check me out there. But the topic of discussion is the end of Marvel's Avengers, the game. So that's our topic for episode 26 here. I'm just going to be discussing the development of Marvel's Avengers that has been ended now. They've stated as of January 20th, 2023, they're working on ceasing development on Marvel's Avengers, and I just kind of wanted to talk about my thoughts of the game, my feelings about the development and the process and the marketing of the game and our experiences, both as players and community members and as a content creator. That I will say this game largely built my channel, my following. I've done a large variety of content, but where I sort of created a community and like found people that liked comics as much as I do and enjoyed these characters and enjoyed playing this game and talking about the possibilities that this game had as much as I do. That is certainly responsible for the growth of my channel. And one of the things we used to do was, every Thursday is the refresh day for the game. So it's like new stuff comes into the marketplace, new events roll into the game. There's new content to play. Maybe there's a new hero. Typically everything happens on Thursday. And so I used to do weekly marketplace breakdown videos. And these videos would get tens of views or hundreds of views or 1,000 views, and it was all over the place as I was a growing channel. There were times where I was like, just so excited to see like one viewer on, like one view on any one video that was on my channel when I was, getting started years ago. But yeah, it just gradually grew, and we always enjoyed, I would talk about what I thought about the new stuff that was in the game, the new outfits, whatever. We'd critique the color choices or how comic accurate it was, or the MCU outfit or whatever it was, and we'd theorize about what was coming next. So, I mean, it was kind of this great moment where you could just rally around all that. And that was something really cool that we did until literally that was just all they were doing, was just adding one outfit a week, and there really wasn't much to talk about. And so I kind of ceased doing those videos. I said, they're really kind of moot at this point for me to make those, and I'm not like getting paid or sponsored to do any of that. So, it just felt like and all the time, every Thursday night, we've played Marvel's Avengers here on the channel, especially on PlayStation 5. I'm starting to sort of foster a little bit of a PC community with some of my friends that have the game. And so I think we'll still continue to play it, is one of the questions that was on everybody's minds, was like, oh my gosh, are you just going to quit playing? Well, as I get into what they talk about here in their final blog post, yeah, I really enjoy this game, and I enjoy the people that I play it with, and I enjoy the community that we have here, and it's so much fun. And so until we can't play it anymore, or until we're just mind-numbingly bored of it, I think I'm always going to be able to find something fun to do in the game, or switching up a character or a build, or just doing something different and finding something new and fresh in the game. But what they've come and said is that following update 2.8 on March 31st, 2023, there will no longer be new content or features coming to Marvel's Avengers. All official support for the game will end September 30th, 2023. So what it means is that anything after September 30th is like, if there's bugs in the game, they won't be fixed. If you're having issues with anything, it's over. Like, they're not gonna mess with anything. So, but what they're saying from March 31st is like, that's gonna be like their final updates. I know they have like, bug fixes and stuff that might come out here, but update 2.8, which is coming on March 31st, credits will no longer be purchasable, and all the cosmetics in the game will be free. So my best advice to you now would be not to go and buy any cosmetics that are in the game. Just wait until they are all free. That's kind of their way of celebrating with the community and giving back to everybody, and just making sure that like you can enjoy everything in the game to its fullest. Whether it's the emotes, the takedowns, the characters' outfits, the challenge cards, which are essentially battle passes for each Avenger, right? And those were ways to like unlock different costumes. And that also means that anything associated with shipments will be fully unlocked. You'll have the full a la carte of every outfit, every different color swap of every outfit, every MCU outfit, all of it. That will be available to you. And I believe that update 2.8 is also going to be the traversal update, from what I know. So that will be like the last big final thing. I will have a link to this blog post in the description down below, because there is a really good Q&A about like, just answering all the wild questions that everyone may have. Like, can I still buy a game? Will events still cycle in? Of course they will. Spider-Man will remain PlayStation exclusive, but people had questions about stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of great questions and a lot of great answers there. But I don't want to really take up too much time hashing that up. I would much rather talk about my thoughts of the game, memories, development, just what I think is going on here, and what I think may have led to some of this stuff. It's really a sad day, and it's unfortunate. But it's a game that I know a lot of us here on the channel really enjoyed. Now, first, I want to iterate that I'm not attacking anyone by saying my thoughts here. I'm not demeaning anyone if I'm talking about anything to do with developers, players, community members, stuff like that. There's definitely a lot of issues, like from my point of view, that I'm just going to sort of describe, and what I see from my perspective as a gamer, as a content creator, as someone that's in the games industry that does, this sort of coverage of stuff like this, and somebody that's put a lot of hours into various live service games, Avengers included. So first off, I got the biggest zinger, is that Square Enix is not a good publisher. And I want to be very clear here. Square Enix makes really great Final Fantasy games. I've really enjoyed those. But I'm saying publisher for specifically Western studios. They were not supportive of Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Marvel's Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, regardless of the performance of these games, which the three games in the Tomb Raider trilogy, I mean, the Deus Ex games have always done really well, but the Tomb Raider series was excellent. It was a bestseller. It was an incredible game. Like, I mean, incredible thing. And they were just like, you're not making us enough money. Like, they're just not a good publisher. They're always just all about that. And it's like, I guess they just don't understand how to support studios, especially Western ones, with Western properties properly. I think they handle their Japanese content and studios and stuff like that really well. But that makes a lot of sense as to why, Crystal Dynamics and, Eidos and other studios were sold off to Embracer Group. And we kind of thought, okay, well, maybe this is a publisher that will support Avengers, but Square was just not good. And there was another reason about to do with all this, was that Square was putting their entire advertising budget, and they were full force behind the Final Fantasy VII remake, which I love. I'm not attacking the game. It's a great game. and the commercials for it were great too. But there was like one TV spot for Avengers, and like they did very little press leading up to the launch of the game. Everything was very tight-lipped. There was only like the initial A-Day, gameplay segment there that kind of functions as a tutorial at the beginning of the game. Like that was the only thing that we had seen, and then we saw like initial E3 trailers and stuff like that. But like we were just relying on whatever the press was saying, which they were already lambasting the game for its choice of character designs, the fact that it didn't have the MCU actors, but had like practically most of the cast of Critical Role, which are some of the best voice actors and most experienced Marvel, specifically Marvel character voice actors. I mean, people like Laura Bailey have voiced Black Widow for a very long time, and it's same with Travis Willingham for Thor. Just all these various characters there. So they were, once again, it's another example of how Square Enix as a publisher and developer in a sense they really cared more about Final Fantasy VII, and they really didn't start marketing Avengers until Final Fantasy VII was out there, and that they had wrapped up their sort of press tour around that game, and then they did very little for Avengers, and then they're like, oh, why does nobody like this game? Why is nobody buying it? Why is, whatever it is. Like, it makes sense that Marvel's Avengers should have been a multi-million-dollar franchise. Like, it should be selling every bit as well as the Marvel movies do on Blu-ray and Disney Plus subscriptions, or just name any Marvel property, any Marvel game, any DC property or DC game, any Star Wars property. It should be like as big of a seller as that. Yet why was this game not that? Well, I mean, we'll kind of get into it. So, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of hate over the casting and the look at the characters, and some of that was changed. Like I know the initial character designs did look a little wonky, and so that was a time where they took feedback, and they looked at their designs and made changes, and obviously it was a very early look at some of that stuff. So, a lot of that was subject to change. It did. And I think at the end of the day, the characters ended up looking really good, and the voice portrayals of said characters, the cutscenes, the storyline, all that stuff ended up being really good. And I still highly recommend this game. And if anything, you will still be able to purchase the game until September 30th, 2023. So if you've ever been the slightest bit curious about this game and you ever want to play it, I mean, all the content's there, and all you have to do is own the game. It's been on sale multiple times. It'll probably be on sale again, but make sure you pick it up before time runs out and they remove it from storefronts. And yeah, my thoughts are kind of all over the place, but I do kind of have sort of an outline of like what I want to talk about. One of the other big things that led kind of to the downfall of this game, I truly believe, is that when roadmaps were canceled, that was a serious red flag. You cannot have a live service game without roadmaps. Destiny, The Division, Warframe, all these other games, they have live streams. They have roadmaps where they sort of blog posts. They have, maybe an image that says like, hey, this new character's coming to the game. These new weapons are coming to the game. This new event's coming on such and such day. And it gives you an idea. Like, even if things are subject to change, it gives you a rough idea of, like, what's going to happen throughout the year. Like, oh, this is the spring update. Here's the winter update. Here's what's coming out in March. Like, all these various things. And it's like, not all of it has to be set in stone, but it often is a way for the community to sort of check the devs and sort of remind them like, hey, you promised this. Like, what's going on here? Or like hold them accountable. And it should never be taken to levels of toxicity, but I do think that this community did get to that, and that's why developer streams stopped. That's why community managers were, moved on to other games, replaced, changed. We went for a long time without a community manager, and someone was just like, kind of just multiple people were just sort of doing the job of community manager until they could hire another one. And so I think that caused a lot of people to leave the studios, just like the toxic atmosphere. It just felt like you were toiling away at a game where you just couldn't get any wins, in terms of the workforce there. When they also said that they would not be doing, so they have different types of content, right? Like they had the expansion, which was War for Wakanda, which added Black Panther, it added Wakanda, it added a whole new storyline, a raid. It was the most substantial additional content that was added post launch. So they had that, but then they had like kind of shorter episodes that you could play, and these were released before Wakanda, and you had Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, and they had their own little storylines, right? They were called Operations. And when they announced that they were not going to do Operations anymore, well, that basically meant that when Spider-Man came out on PlayStation, and when Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, came out, and when Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, came out, those characters just didn't really have cutscenes. They didn't really have substantial reasons as to why they were joining the team other than, like, we're here to fight AIM. Like, there weren't motion captured, cutscenes. There weren't moving, there wasn't any of that AAA campaign stuff that we got at the beginning of the game. And it just sort of started to trail off more and more towards the end, the more characters they added, just after they finished Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and Black Panther. It was like each character after that just sort of started to be, it felt like from a player's perspective, it was like less and less effort. Not saying that they didn't work really hard, but like the production value of the way that they used to add characters just wasn't there anymore. And so just adding a character and saying like, hey, play all the old legacy content with this new shiny character who's here for little to no reason. We, they just kind of show up on the helicarrier, and it's just like, okay, and they're here to fight AIM. Like, didn't make sense. So that was an issue to me. Of course, the other struggle with any live service game is that rollout of content was slow. And this is hard. I mean, Destiny, most notably, it took a while for Destiny to get their various content, whether it was raids, new strikes, multiplayer maps, new guns, new armor, stuff like that. All the various things that we know that are in Destiny 2 today that, they've spent the better part of a decade adding into this game. It took them a while before they could get to the point where they could develop stuff and have things out that quick. Like Destiny 2 now, it's like on a weekly basis. There's like seasonal content happening. There's season passes, there's dungeons, there's raids. There's always something new and always something new to chase and grind for. And well, with Avengers, it was like characters were 3 to like at the least 3 months apart, and then at the most, I mean, they would be like several months or almost a year apart at times. It was rough. And so you were always waiting for new content. You were always theorizing about what new content there would be, and we'll get into some of that later. But yeah, I mean, for a live service game, you really have to at some point get that stability of consistency with the content, whether it's little stuff or big stuff. Like with Destiny, they always do like one big content drop a year where it's like whole new open world area, whole new armor, whole new raid, whole new guns, maybe a whole new like alien race of enemies to go after, stuff like that. So, I mean, big substantial updates like that, and you pay for it typically, like $30 or something a year. And you don't mind paying for it because the quality is going to be there. And I think the other downfall with Avengers was the fact that they said, hey, once you own the game, all future content, heroes, DLC, stuff like that is free. And I said, well, that's great and all, and that's super cool, but like when the content starts to become of a lower quality, I would much rather pay and have you guys have enough money to be able to do really great things and come out with stuff like War for Wakanda once a year. That would have been spectacular. And the other issue is that marketplace content was only content that was regularly being delivered most of the time. As I was saying earlier, it was like every week there was new costumes or whatever it may be, new outfits for characters, takedowns and stuff, and then eventually even those slowed down. So and then it started becoming maybe there's like one or two new outfits, or they'd take a helmet off an outfit and sell it to you for more money. So that being the only regular content makes it very difficult to recommend the game, or people on the outside looking in are like, it looks like this is just kind of like a gotcha game where it's just like, you're just paying for this and this and this and all these cosmetics here, and it's like you're not really getting new adventures to go on to wear those cosmetics in. So like, what's the point here? And so other issues is that people never flock to the game again after low reviews and of course with the slow content rollouts. But yeah, the game was initially reviewed as pretty mediocre, and I actually stack it up as one of my favorite superhero games. Marvel Spider-Man, really loved it. Batman Arkham games, Avengers, even Gotham Knights is up there. Marvel's Midnight Suns up there as well. The Ultimate Alliance games are really great as well. I mean, there's a whole bunch of games, but I put Marvel's Avengers up there in the pantheon. Even with all of its flaws, there are things that are in this game that other games couldn't do, or that I think this game did really special and in a really good way. So, but yeah, I do think that with all the gaming journalism outlets and all the, YouTubers and Twitch streamers and stuff, the hate reviews and stuff like that. And not to say that we can't critique stuff, but I think there was an especially cruel um, journalistic. I wouldn't even say it was journalistic. I would just say that it was incredibly cruel, and people were just mad that they didn't get what they thought they wanted. People were mad that it was a live service game and not a single player story game, or that it wasn't a co-op game that was just, didn't have like looter shooter elements or live service elements. People are just scared of stuff like that, of like battle passes and microtransactions and additional content and stuff. People, and it's relatable at times. I do enjoy some games like Spider-Man where it's like you get it on day one and everything's right there in the box, and you can play it start to finish. But I will argue this to the death, is that Marvel's Avengers works best as a live service game. Because rather than tell one story about how the Avengers fight AIM and then have to wait 3 to 6 years for a sequel to a AAA project, and then get Avengers 2 and then play that story, and then it's like, well, are we going to get a third one, or is this going to be the end of it? It works better as a live service game because think about it. Comics innately are live service. Issues coming out week after week or month after month, and they're going on various adventures, and different storylines end, different heroes rotate in and out, and different characters are highlighted, different villains come in. And so that's kind of what the possibility for this game had, was that you could essentially, once the AIM storyline wrapped up, you could have the Kree invasion, you could have Hydra, you could have something going on in Asgard, you could have Civil War happen, you could have Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, it could go anywhere, right? Like, the possibilities are endless. And so that's why I say, in that angle, if this was done properly as a live service game, this game had a lot of potential, and this would have been the best outlet for an Avengers game. Now, if you're doing solo character games like Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Batman and stuff like that, that makes sense. But when you're doing like a group thing, like Justice League or Avengers, and even with the new Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, or with Gotham Knights, where, you have multiple characters of the Bat family, it almost makes sense for it to be sort of a co-op thing with additional DLC coming out later, like adding new villains and stuff like that, new stories for these characters to go on. It's not unusual. So yeah, that was one of the difficult things, and the PC community pretty much never recovered from that. PC community counts were always low, but on PlayStation and Xbox, the communities for the game were always pretty substantial. Player base was there, but the other issue was like when War for Wakanda came out, like the player base shot up, but then once they finished all the content, it was like everybody noped out. And some people do that with Destiny as well. Not everybody's a 9 to 5 player or a weekend warrior. Sometimes people just jump on Destiny when the new expansion drops, play through it all, and then they're done. Not everybody enjoys it to the extent that they want to play it once a week or every day, or grind new content or try to max out characters and get the best gear. They're kind of just here to play the story and be done with it. So that makes it difficult. PC optimization at launch was also pretty bad. Game wasn't very stable. Even on PS4, I had issues with stuff like frame rate and stuff like that. So, I mean, even just running through the campaign as good as it was quite miserable in the sense that I just, the game was not running well at launch. And so that can cause people to flock away and never come back. And so you kind of lose that goodwill along with the low ratings and just anytime there was news about this game, journalism outlets would just pretty much blast this game and remind you like failed Marvel's Avengers game has XP bug that devs get rid of. It's like and it's like, so even when they do something right, they can't win. When they do something wrong, they can't win. So it just felt like this game never could recover and never could get in the good graces of the press or in content creators as well. Even though I always kept a positive outlook, but also was able to look at the game and talk about and explain its flaws. I will say that this game has one of the best storylines throughout. The main campaign is incredible. It's got a lot of heart. It had me, at the beginning, it had me just fangirling that I was just meeting my favorite superheroes aboard the helicarrier, and Kamala Khan was the perfect vessel for the player, like for me to sort of like live out my dreams of like, holy crap, I just met Thor, or oh my gosh, is that Captain America? He just signed one of my comic books, like something like that, right? And the story just has a lot of heart in the way that she has to reassemble the Avengers, and she ends up becoming one of them. And then, of course, it gets into like time travel stuff with Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, and then we end up going to Wakanda to fight Crossbones and Claw and stuff like that, and meet up with Black Panther, who ends up joining the Avengers. Like, really cool stuff. I mean, stuff of my dreams. And Christopher Judge really nailed it as Black Panther. And so I will say that the combat team did a really good job, and one of the things that like a lot of people I think don't know, there's a lot of people that worship the 2018 God of War game and Ragnarok, right? Has recently come out. Well, that combat designer that worked on God of War 2018 designed, the way the axe responds and stuff like that. He worked on Marvel's Avengers, and so that really shows in the combat of this game, and especially with the way Thor plays. Kratos and Thor play very similar. And I will say that Iron Man plays somewhat quite similar to Marvel's Spider-Man, the game, in the way that you hold square, he does an uppercut. You hold square while you're in the air, he slams to the ground. He's just got all these various moves and move sets and just controller play styles, and everything's really easy to like pick up and play. Like, this game doesn't have like super difficult combos or anything like that. Like, the skill trees make a lot of sense, and you can swap things out to get different move sets and play styles, and different gear changes the way you play the game. And I think this game is the best Captain America game. It's the best Iron Man game. It's the best Hulk game. It's the best Black Widow game. So for each character, we just haven't, like, I can think that Captain America has had one game based on the first Avenger movie that was like, okay, that one was all right. But like, we haven't had good Iron Man games, We haven't had a lot of good games for a lot of these characters. Hulk Ultimate Destruction was dope. But like, a lot of these characters, we haven't had good games, and like this one just nailed every move you'd want to see from the comics or that you've seen in movies or in TV shows of these characters. You'll see some of it reflected in the game via the takedowns or just the way they move. And it's really cool that they were able to capture that. So I mean, mad props to the combat team for all that. I've already talked about the incredible cast and the campaign. But also another thing is that, elements in the game were buggy. There's a lot of bugs with enemies getting stuck in the floor and the walls, or, getting stun locked by multiple attacks from enemies, and then you just can't get up. Like, you just keep getting constantly knocked back and stunned in ways that you can't move. And I will say that the OLT, the one against the super adaptoid, is poorly designed, because it is a boss fight where the boss has infinite range, spawns clones of himself, and spawns regular adaptoids, and spawns turrets that shoot missiles that get rid of your heroic energy. And because everything has infinite range, you're either spamming the dodge button trying to dodge out of it, or you have to have a build where you have a certain amount of defense so that you can tank these big hits. And it really doesn't become about skill. It just becomes about, well, what do you have equipped? Or like, which character are you running? Or how much damage can you output? Like, can you one-shot the boss? Or can you, defeat them within the first few minutes? Or can you clear the enemies up quick enough that you don't become overwhelmed by too many enemies spawning? And so I do think that OLT was specifically really poorly designed. But I do enjoy the raid and all the boss fights that are there. But there's also bugs there, and a lot of that stuff, over the past 2.5 years here that the game's been out, haven't, just weren't properly addressed. And, maybe that's deeper issues with the dev team, or not having enough staff on this or that, or not being able to fix certain problems, or issues with the engine, stuff like that, So there's stuff like that. But this is just me stating everything, just throwing everything at the wall that I know about this game, every complaint I have, every good thing that I have to say about this game. And of course, there will be more conversations around this in the future. No Rest for the Wicked was a villain sector that was added, and so was Cloning Lab is an OLT technically that was added later. And Cloning Lab was something we knew about back in 2020. There was gear that would drop in the game that was specific to Cloning Lab. Cloning Lab was on the roadmap for the game. That this was where AIM was creating all their clones, and that we were going to have to go into this lab and shut it down. We would get really good gear as a result, right? But this got delayed until the final year of development here, when it was just recently released, and it has our final battle against MODOK. Well, it has a lot of older and repurposed content, and, while I understand that, obviously it was something that's been in the works for the past 2.5 years and was only recently launched. It's a thing that shows the steady decline of like how we had really great content, and then it gradually got worse after War for Wakanda. And kind of the same thing for No Rest for the Wicked. It had some really awkward, like, not cutscenes, but just, scenes where it would stop. Like, technically it's a cutscene, but it's not like motion captured or with lots of movement or anything. It's just like characters standing statically and talking to each other and like not really moving. And that ended up being pretty much how most of the cutscenes for the last several characters that were added to the game, it was really just them standing around the helicarrier with hands on their hips saying, "Oh man, we got to do something about AIM. Good thing you're here, Bucky." Like, and it's like, I love the voice actors and I love their delivery, but it was like there was soulless direction in terms of camera angles, in terms of, acting, and acting in terms of like the characters on the screen. These are basically digital puppets that are being controlled by the developers, right? So I don't know. It's just it's something that's really sad. But yeah, a lot of people didn't want the live service and looter shooter, gear hunting style design, and so that lost a lot of people from the start, and that's a real shame because like those were elements that I didn't think I wanted either, but like I was like I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Like I really want to play a good Avengers game, and I think I did play a good Avengers game. Um but yeah, I think if they had had people that were like ex Bungie devs or someone from Warframe or Division or something like that, if they had or even like consulted with people that were knowledgeable and stuff like that. And I know they were, towards the end they were starting to hire people and they were seeking people with experience in the live service games industry. It was just too little, too late at that point. Um, the toxic community also led to less dev streams, less outreach, less roadmaps, less communication, and at times you have fans that are really passionate, but you also had fans that were like threatening the devs, being hateful. They're like, you didn't come out with this, or you didn't do this outfit, or this looks terrible. Like, you guys don't deserve to have this game or to have this job, or you should quit this, or they would threaten people's lives and stuff like that. And I agree, that is completely wrong, and no one should do that. And I've always tried to make sure that myself and the people in my community are always calm, rational, positive, even if we have displeasures to voice, that we always speak about it in a constructive way, and that we're not being toxic, hateful, threatening, any of that stuff, because that's completely unfounded. Yeah, and so we've kind of tapped into this a little bit, but I mean, obviously, when community managers leave, when various people at the top leave, when you lose your combat designer, all these different things, people move on to other projects. Like, some of this stuff is related to how the community treats them, how it just feels like they're chipping away at this game where they want to get it to that point where it's like, this is the greatest, and look at all the great content that's out here, and oh, I can't wait for the future. Like, they can't wait to get it there, but it just feels like they just could not make that happen. And so it's a demotivating workplace to work in when it just feels like no matter what you do, it's just soul crushing. And I know this as a musician. I mean, when you're playing gigs and if like no one claps or no one appreciates you, or if you're playing for a certain, venue over and over and over, and it feels like you're not being appreciated, or people are talking down about you or something like that, even if you know you're good, or that you have fans and you have people that enjoy the type of stuff you do. But I mean, if you're hearing all the time that you're the worst, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't be doing this, then it really does sort of start to chip away at your soul, and it's a very unhealthy workplace to be involved in. And so, getting back into some other stuff, PC community never recovered, and as a result, there was no crossplay. That was something that they always said that they wanted to add, but crossplay would have saved this game, honestly. The reason I quit playing on PC for the longest time was because the player base there was so impossibly low. I couldn't even do events. I couldn't play the raid because I couldn't find 3 other people to play with. And some of the objectives for some of the events are like, you need to have another player on your team and you need to both play as the same hero. Well, if I can't matchmake into any particular mission or whatever the event missions are, or if it wants me to do something, like if I can't do that, then why am I playing the game? So we started building our community on PlayStation as a result. The other thing would be join in progress was never added, which that needed to be in the game from the start. This is a co-op game, and you can't join a mission if there's like 3 of us playing a mission and a 4th wants to join in, or if someone lags out, disconnected, the game crashes. We just have to leave the mission and start it over from the very start. And when there are lots of bugs and when there are lots of connectivity issues and server issues and stuff like that, it makes this game a nightmare to play. Now, it's gotten better over the years, but that was still something that needed to be added. And of course, patrol mode was something that was on the roadmap for the longest time. They were talking about adding it to the Wasteland map. It was essentially going to be like some sort of free roam mode where, we just fight enemies and maybe bosses would jump in and show up, and, you could explore all the different worlds. If they were going to be able to do this in multiple maps, you'd be able to explore, akin to the way you patrol in Destiny. You fly down to Earth and, you can do public events, or you can, like, go fight enemies or go explore caves, or, just whatever. All sorts of cool stuff, right? Yeah, the less story, the less cutscenes, no more motion capture being used. I mean, I get that stuff like that is really expensive, but I mean, if you needed to charge for all the content in the game in order to be able to come out with high quality stuff like that, I say that's what should have been done. Some of the other issues I know that developers talked about rather candidly at times is that everything that goes into the game has to be approved by Marvel. And so that means if you have a patch or if you have like a new character coming in the game or whatever, you had to make sure that everything was run by Marvel. Character designs, is Black Widow showing too much skin? Is your design of Bucky Barnes accurate to the comics? Are you stepping on anything that they're doing in the MCU? They don't want you to potentially ruin something that's being done elsewhere, or to step on something that's not canon in the comics, or something that is canon, or whatever it might be, right? So having to get everything approved like that when you're working with big properties like that, it's their baby. They want to be able to look over stuff and approve stuff and make sure that everything is being done properly. So that doesn't help. But it does leave one to wonder that if this game was more like Gotham Knights, would it have been more successful if it was just co-op, playable heroes, linear story, one and done, maybe some DLC campaigns or DLC missions or modes later on down the line, and maybe even just one city. Like, what if it was just all based in New York and they had one highly detailed city, in the way that Gotham Knights had one highly detailed Gotham City, but with, multiple buildings you could go in, multiple villains that you could encounter throughout the city. I've already touched on it's the best playable iterations of all the iconic Marvel characters, that all the builds and the combat and stuff are the most fun for all those characters. But the other thing is that this game was also kind of a big tease for the past 2.5 years. They teased a Kree invasion where maybe Captain Marvel would show up at the end to save the day. The Thor iconic campaign teased Loki. There were multiple teases for Ultron to eventually become a problem, essentially, with the whole Cosmic Cube, the end of that mission. They teased that Brother Voodoo and Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch existed in this world. If you go into a certain room in Wakanda, I have some video clips of that on the channel. You can listen to Zawavari talk about these various characters. He would be communing with the spirits or whatever and telepathically speaking to Doctor Strange or whatever. The game had really beautiful social spaces and open worlds, and it was always really fun walking around the helicarrier and talking to everybody and exploring and doing the same at the anthill with the Ant-Man and seeing all the Inhumans there that were banding together, or going to the SHIELD Substation Zero and seeing Maria Hill and Dum Dum Dugan, and just kind of walking around talking to all the different merchants and purchasing gear until you were 140 or higher, and then the gear shops ended up being kind of moot, and the cosmetic shop was kind of cool, but then that kind of ended up being moot, and then they kind of gave up on the pattern machine, which was really cool. Patterns used to drop, and you'd pop them in the machine, you get a random outfit or whatever. That was really cool. And we never got more enemy types, you know? It was all just aim and claw mercs. You know, a lot of people theorized it'd be great to see Hydra. It would be great to see, you know, all sorts of Nilfgaardians, you know, whatever, you know, sort of different enemies from all the different iconic Avengers. Or when Spider-Man joined, we always thought, oh man, is Doc Ock going to be here, or Venom or something like that? Will we get the black suit? You know, all this stuff. And, you know, it was a shame that Crossbones had a really good boss fight in the game, in the single player. But yeah, there was never like a Crossbones villain sector or a multiplayer fight against Crossbones that we could do later on. I really enjoyed that. And so all we had was like fighting Taskmaster, Abomination, Maestro, MODOK over and over and over. And I just feel like when they added MODOK in the cloning lab, it was just too little, too late. You know, people were tired of the game and kind of fed up with it, and so I was excited to get to fight MODOK and sort of wrap it up and sort of have that final moment of closure, but it just didn't feel substantial enough for this game, and just sort of the tease of, well, this might eventually lead to the Kree invasion here, and with the whole, you know, end of the world stuff that we saw in the future and perfect storyline, and how they teased that whole Kree invasion. It was like, this is something that's going to be an upcoming problem for the Avengers in their current present day. And, you know, we were just really looking forward to that moment of like seeing Kamala meet Captain Marvel, you know, her hero that she has posters of her on the wall. So, I mean, it's just incredible. I guess what I want to say is that we're not done with this game. We won't be done playing it. I'm gonna have more conversations. I want to sit down with other people and talk about this game. I have a couple of people that I have planned to sit down and make videos, podcast episodes, and stuff like that. Get their thoughts of this game, both, you know, just their experience as a player, and both what they think of it now that it's sort of shutting down and wrapping things up. I probably have more thoughts on this game. I mean, there's so much I can say, but I just want to say I really enjoyed this game. I still enjoy it, and I'm still gonna love playing it. And it almost makes me tear up. I mean, I really enjoyed my experience with this, and it's a shame to see it wrapped up. But if anything, if there's a positive silver lining here, is that, you know, we probably won't ever get a game that's quite like this one. We might not ever get another live service superhero or Avengers game. And we might not get one with combat that's quite this good. We might get games that are like Ultimate Alliance. We might get games that are like Marvel Spider-Man. Maybe we'll get something completely, you know, out of the realm of possibility that we could even think of right now. But I think it's going to be really hard to have something either like this. We might see something better than this, but I don't think there'll be anything quite like this game. And I mean that in a positive light. I don't mean that as a negative. I actually really have a lot of respect. I want to thank the devs, and I want to thank all the hardworking people that worked on this. I hope my harsh and constructive thoughts here didn't scald too deeply, but I mean, it hurts me as much as it hurts you to sort of see something that had so much possibility, and that we spent weeks and weeks and months in the past few years being so excited and theorizing about all the cool stuff we'd like to see, and talking about the heroes and all the possibilities, and talking about our builds, and talking about which characters we like to play as, and who we want on our team, what our favorite outfits are, and what our favorite movies are, and, you know, stuff like that. So stay tuned for more. And once again, I want to thank everybody for the incredible landmark that we made here of surpassing 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, getting YouTube partner, being able to monetize my channel, and really sort of turn this thing around. And really, this was sort of a passion project, and this is something that I've done for years. I've been on Twitch for 7 years. We're starting year 3 here on YouTube. And so, 10 years as a content creator, around the end of the year, I believe, will be that anniversary. So this is year 10 of being a content creator, and seeing that this was something that I was able to do with your help, and being able to monetize my content and sort of be able to make money off of this, but also be able to live my passion of gaming, talking about gaming, being a part of this universe and talking about all my favorite stuff and playing my favorite stuff and entertaining people and creating music and doing my photography and writing music and all the various things that I do throughout all my content creation. It's just incredible to now be able to make something more of it and to make a bigger impact as a YouTuber. Once again, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're over on YouTube watching the video feed, if you're listening, much appreciated as well. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a review. Definitely hit the like button on the video. Drop a comment if you want to let me know how you feel about Avengers, what this game has meant to you, whether you'd like to play it. Anything's good. Just keep it kind and don't be rude. But that'll be it on this one. Leave suggestions if you have any for future Shackcast episodes. I'm always taking feedback, and if anyone has any recommendations on topics they'd like me to cover, I'm certainly game for it. So once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is Aaron Shack, and this was Shackcast episode number 26, the end of Marvel's Avengers game. Thank you. Bye.